Hello, crypto boys and ghouls, and welcome back to the channel, Tales from the Cryptmancer, where we feature content on play-to-earn games on the blockchain, such as Splinterlands. And in today's video, we have a special treat tonight. We are going to talk about the new Riftwatcher Summoners and how these particular summoners buff specific cards and take advantage of specific rule sets. And there's going to be some pretty drastic changes to the meta as well as card values coming up. So having knowledge of this in advance is definitely going to, I think, help a lot of the viewers of this channel. So let's hop into it and let's go into some of the specifics. Let's start with fire here. Gore is the summoner here for fire, is part of the new 4 mana Riftwatchers Epic Summoners. And specifically with Gore, granting the Enrage ability to all monsters on the fire team, these are the 3 cards that I think receive the biggest buffs for this particular summoner. The first being a Freed Elder. When a Freed Elder gets Enraged, for example, if it's at the back end of your lineup, it's going to get 6 speed, it's going to have phase, it's going to have 10 health, and it's going to basically get even better from a dodging perspective until it gets to the front line, where it just becomes crazy good as now Last Stand kicks in addition to Enrage, and that's just nutty how much speed and phase and dodging that card could potentially do. Now, just a note here as we're going through these card analyses, the data that I'm going to be talking about are the cards at max level ability. Generally speaking, the cards scale pretty well across all these summoners. So even at bronze, silver, gold, and diamond, they're all going to be probably good for these particular summoner buffs. But remember, I'm going to be talking about them in the context of diamond and champion level, just for a singular point of reference. Now, the next card that gets a huge buff from Gore and the Enrage ability here is going to be Phineas Rage. Phineas Rage with Reach here and Retaliate. If he gets hit when he's in the reach position, he's going to be somewhat like the Gorladon for death, and the fact that his speed is going to go up to 9 speed and his melee is going to go up to 6 melee damage. So this card is just going to be a beast when it comes to being used with Gore here. And then the next one being Cerberus here. Cerberus with Retaliate and the self-heal may go in and out of Enrage periodically throughout the battle. But in the, for example, front tank position, when it gets hit and enraged, it's going to have roughly 8 speed and 6 melee damage with a self-heal and Retaliate. And that's very, very good. Now, I have specific rule sets where Gore is going to get benefits from, and the monsters will get benefits from these rule sets. The first 3 here on the left, Earthquake, Noxious Fumes, and Blast. These are all actually interesting scenarios for Gore because, well, they're going to make sure your monsters get enraged and get the boost to the speed and potentially their melee damage quickly because, well, all of these effects tend to damage monsters up and down the board that you will have getting enraged. Additionally, the same thing can be said here, not only from the equal opportunity, but also the super sneak ability. For all your melee monsters, they're going to get the chance to attack, potentially get thorned, potentially get retaliated, so they can also get enraged that way. And they can also be affected by being hit by opportunity from your opponent or super sneak from your opponent, similar to the Noxious Fumes and Earthquake and Blast pieces. Again, the idea with Gore here is to get enraged, to deal significant damage back to your opponent, and also get very fast in return to potentially get some dodges moving forward. So this is what I think are the best cards that are going to get meta buffs here under Gore. Now, the next splinter that we're going to talk about is water, and here we have Aquatis with the backfire ability, and 3 cards that I think are going to receive significant boosts in synergies and meta buffs here for Aquatis. The first being the Spirit Miner here. It's already got basically swiftness for your team, blind for your team, and then dodge on this card, in addition to being able to provide 3 magic damage at the max level. So it's going to enable your already probably fast units in your team to be able to trigger more backfires with that swiftness, with the blind, and also the Spirit Mine obviously itself getting the dodge for its own protection. Now, the next card is the Kelp Initiate here. This card is already super good for a low mana tank for water. It gets even better with Aquatis because it has a base here, 6 speed at max level with cleanse and high health. So this is obviously a card that can trigger backfire on your opponents if it's used in that front tank position or even in the snipe position for your water team. And last but certainly not least, the Serpent of Eld here with the 5 base speed with the dodge. A great card to trigger backfire as well. And all of these cards get even faster and trigger more backfires here if your rule set is Enrage and you get the Enrage ability to trigger for your monster when they take damage. Now, the next splinter to talk about is Earth. Earth here, we have Fernhardt. Fernhardt provides the close range ability for your monsters here, and 4 cards that get immediate meta buffs and value buffs in the marketplace in my mind. The first, War Chang here. War Chang having close range becomes a really nice frontline tank for your Fernhardt team because it has the 3 archery damage with the 3 melee damage with Retaliate and with Trample. Becomes a huge card for Earth moving forward. I don't think it's been talked about enough. Then you've got your Scavenge archery units, the reward cards that were terrible, just awful before Fernhardt was introduced here. And this is why we had the video in our channel here a month ago talking about why close range should be coming to the Earth Splinter. And it's because of Eyes of the Fang Legendary and Venari Seedsmith here, reward card, had really no usefulness in Earth until Fernhardt was introduced, and here he is. You've got Scavenge for Eyes of the Fanged here, allowing this card to not only still do damage when it gets to the front, but also have a decent health pool. It's also a nice use of stun for the Earth team, which is somewhat hard to get in Earth. And then you have the Venari Seedsmith doing something similar here again. Good archery damage, getting health as it gets to the front, being able to be a higher health tank by the time it gets to the front line and still being able to do damage. And last but not least, Cornealis here, a great primary tank or off tank or just permanent fixture in your Fernhardt high mana teams. It's got a self-heal, it's got Thorns, Magic Reflect, Return Fire, all at the max level with great archery damage here. Just going to be a staple for the Fernhardt teams. Now, for scenarios or rule sets, you'll want to take advantage of this summoner. The first being Aim True, so your archery always hit. You've got Keep Your Distance, so all of your archery units can take advantage of close range. You've got also Back to Basics. Again, the summoner ability will cascade through to Back to Basics, so all of your archery units that are cheap and do a lot of damage can be used all the time with Fernhardt. And then you've got rule sets such as Equal Opportunity and Blast that just amplify the effectiveness of this team. So if it's all archery, it's going to be spreading blast all over the place and firing every unit in your team from turn 1, hitting archery damage all over your opponent with the Equal Opportunity. So those are rule sets that you'll definitely want to pay attention to when you have looking to use Fernhardt. Now, for the life team here, we have Thane, +1 speed, and Return Fire. These are the 5 cards in my mind that gain the most buff or meta increase in value and utility for Thane here with his summoner abilities. The first, Venator Kinjo, the reason he is on this list is because he has 2 support abilities that are key for Thane. The first being slow plus a +1 speed for Thane is basically a 2-speed differential for your team here. Getting that with a 4-mana summoner and a 2-mana support card is great. And then you also have Amplify. So you're going to amplify all of that return fire with Venator Kinjo at max level, which is a great card. Now, the next 3 cards here are great because they're tanky cards that already encompass Magic Reflect in their skill sets, and also now by adding Return Fire to these cards plus speed, and all 3 of these already have decent speed at max level, really makes these even more survivable tanks and also very much ubiquitous tanks no matter what comes at you, whether it's magic, whether it's archery or range damage. These 3 tanks here, the Pelacor Conjurer, the Prismatic Energy, and the Zenith Monk, all become multi-purpose and very efficient tanks that are durable, that return magic fire, return range fire, and also are quite quick and can dodge attacks as well. And last, but certainly not least, a fan favorite here, the Rusty Android. Wow, when is the last time we've talked about Rusty Android other than to say, put this card out the pasture and park it on land and get it off the arena floor here? Well, actually, in this case, the Rusty Android is not a terrible option here for a life team if you have this card. Again, it is a 4 melee damage, 4 speed, 10 health tank that has Magic Reflect as a base ability, but now when you add the speed and return fire, it actually becomes pretty respectable with at max level 5 speed, return fire, and Magic Reflect with 4 melee damage and 10 health. So it's not so terrible when it gets that extra ability. Now, from a rule set perspective, rule sets you're going to want to take advantage when you see them and use Thane on these will be close range, aim true, target practice, certainly. So you're taking advantage of when your opponent should be looking to use, for example, a lot of ranged units against you. So be able to take advantage of that return fire, passive damage, and then also when you don't have magic available. So lost magic, where magic's not as effective with weak magic, or keep your distance where you can imagine that there's going to be some range units that your opponent's going to be using. So these are rule sets. When you see these, you're going to want to think Thane. Now, the next splinter here is Death, and Dalan provides Cripple. Cripple is interesting here. We'll have to see how effective it is. It is probably the most ubiquitous ability that's granted here by these Epic Riftwatcher Summoners. And because it applies to all of your cards equally, except for possibly magic damaging cards when not used against Wraith, every card is going to be able to take advantage of Cripple when you play Dalan. But the cards, in my mind, that get the biggest buffs here or meta increases will be Uraeus, because if it hits a card with shield, it's going to cripple, and then it has a chance to drop poison on that now crippled monster, accelerating the demise of that opponent. Same idea here with Skeleton Assassin. If it hits a creature with a shield, it's going to reduce the health by 1, potentially apply poison, and now that poison is working even more effectively. And last but not least, you have Vampire with Life Leech here. The Cripple will apply the Life Leech gain here for the Vampire in this particular case, ramping up their ability to get health. And then from a rule set perspective here, rule sets where Cripple will be more valuable is Armored Up. So you can, again, if you're hitting that armor, still do health damage. And then other scenarios where you expect to see a lot of armor naturally in the match, such as Lost Magic or Weak Magic. Now, the next splinter here is Dragon. It is our last splinter, and this is Thispa with the Phase ability. And there are some interesting dragon combinations that you can bring together here that make Thispa really shine. And what really is going to be the benefit of phase is using it on a creature that has a high base speed already, but maybe has a low health pool to go with that high speed. And these are creatures that usually have good damage output, but are susceptible to magic attacks as a way of really eliminating these cards quickly. And what Thispa does is it takes their strength of speed and mitigates their weakness of low health by putting that phase onto these cards. So a card like Phantom of the Abyss becomes a rock star here because it has a base 6 speed with dodge and flight. Now with phase, its weakness would have been magic, but now it becomes essentially mitigated here, and it can do a lot of damage now with that magic damage without much fear of reprisal. And you can actually now use Phantom of the Abyss as a frontline tank pretty regularly under Thispa. Now, the Vampire Bat, also similar to the Phantom of the Abyss, here very fast, 5 speed with flight and dodge, has a low health pool. Obviously, magic would quickly, when it hits it, automatically would negate that card and take it out of the frontline tank position pretty quickly. Now, however, with phase, with Thispa, for 3 mana, you have a very versatile tank that can, basically tank for you against magic and range and melee attacks. This card's going to be great value under Thispa here. And then you've got Serpentine Soldier, again, similar concept here, 6 speed with dodge, a very low health pool, but now magic is not as much of a threat. Venari Knifer, similar here, 6 base speed with backfire. Again, magic now being able to be dodged. Regal Parrington, same thing, 7 speed with flight. And last here, possibly least actually, is the Dragon Spirit, card that's not really used much, but with 6 speed and flight here, with the phase, it becomes a much more viable tank for Dragon, especially if you wanted to use Dragon in a low mana match, like in the 12 to 20 mana range, and you don't have a good option to field as a cheap tank for your team, potentially like a Fire Splinter. Now you can use Thispa at 4 mana, Dragon Spirit at 3 mana, and start filling in your other Splinter-specific cards to use with Thispa. Now, from a rule set perspective, where you would see a good advantage for Thispa, you've got the Armored Up rule set, the Back to Basics, and the Keep Your Distance. All of these will have a lot of magic attackers present in these cases. And then also here, you've got your Target Practice and your Aim True. Not Target Practice. You've got your Broken Arrows, so you're going to have a lot of magic by default. Your Target Practice, where you're going to have Magic Snipe in play. And then last here, you've got the Spreading Fury rule set, where all of your units, once they do take a hit, their speed is going to go through the roof here on all of these units, and then it makes it even harder for any attacks to hit magic, melee, or archery. Just a great card in my opinion, and I think it's going to be very valuable. So there you have it, a quick breakdown of the cards across the Splinters, Neutral, Dragon, all 5 Splinters that are going to get buffs here with these new Epic Riftwatcher Summoners. Let me know in the comments below if there are any that you think I might have missed on this list, and I appreciate you supporting the channel, liking the video, and subscribing. Until next time, keep stacking those stats.
That's entertainment.